Like one day, and I left it at the guard station at the hospital. Came out the next day after working overnight, and it was gone.
Good evening, everyone. This is the regular meeting for the Altamont Zoning Board of Appeals on February 24th, 2026. The time is 7:03. Before we begin, the exits, one on each side there and one behind me to my left. And if everyone could please rise, pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If you take a look at the agenda, we have 3 different public hearings. I'm going to move item number 3 to the first position. So I will open up the public hearing for the application for special use permit for AT&T Mobility. I'll read I will read the public notice. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held before the Zoning Board of Appeals for the Village of Altamont at the Village Community Room, 115 Main Street, Altamont, New York, on the 24th of February, 2026 at 7 p.m. to hear all interested persons regarding an application for special use permit by AT&T for an upgrade of an existing telecommunications structure located at 18 Agawam Lane, Altamont, New York, tax map number 37.18-1-45.1. Copies of the materials related to this application shall be available at the time of the hearing and shall be available at times prior to and after the hearing at the village clerk's office during normal business hours for the purpose of inspection or procurement by interested persons. Before I invite members in the audience to come up, there are a couple notes. One note that came in that I would read into the record.
Should we introduce ourselves?
Yes, we should. If the board could go and introduce themselves.
Lori Pinsey.
Charles Trout. Simon Litton.
James Sullivan.
James Lavelle, Town Attorney.
Bob Freeman.
Elizabeth Laparco.
All right. And before I read the letter that we received, could I please have a motion to open the public hearing?
I will make that motion.
I'll second that.
Bob.
Thank you. Okay, roll call. Board Member Freeman.
Approved.
Board Member Litton.
In favor.
Board Member McCarthy.
In favor.
Board Member Trout.
Approve.
Board Member Pinsey.
In favor.
And Chairperson.
In favor. Okay. We received a letter from the Concerned Citizens Committee, and I'll read it. Concerns and comments relating to the variance request at, oh, excuse me, that's the wrong one. We don't have any letters for the fairgrounds as far as I can see. Right? Oh, sorry, there is one. Nope. Okay, so there are no letters. So if there's anyone from the public that would like to speak on the special use permit for the AT&T tower, you're welcome to come up at this point.
Good evening. Dave Burke, 6 Sanford Place. When they say upgrade of an existing telecommunications structure, what does upgrade mean?
Hi, I'm Martha. I'm representing AT&T.
Could I ask you to come up to the microphone. And also, this isn't necessarily a question and answer period. It's for comments.
But I don't know what I'm commenting on without knowing what the upgrade is,
It was listed in the materials that were provided.
okay?
But the applicant is welcome to come up and share any information they'd like to share.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just let her.
What material?
There were materials from the last meeting that detailed the application and what was intended
And they were distributed out?
on the website. They were made public on the website at the previous month's meeting.
I don't believe those are available on the website right now.
Okay, we can look into that.
They should be on the website.
Yeah.
Both last meeting and this meeting.
But if you'd like to share any details about the project?
I can,
Yeah.
if that helps. So AT&T is removing 3 antennas and replacing those 3 antennas with 3 new antennas.
Closer.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you.
Apologize, sorry. So it's a like-for-like swap of antennas for upgraded equipment.
I guess my question was, is it going to be larger or taller?
No, the footprint's not increasing, the height's not increasing. The amount remains the same.
What's the reason for the change?
To keep up with the demand, people are using their phones more for the internet, so just to provide streaming services, updated technology, essentially.
So does that mean there's more screens on the antennas? So what is new about the equipment that now allows you to take care of that demand?
Again, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
I would ask that any questions or comments, the people need to come up and speak into the microphone so it's on the record. But not everyone can, and it needs to be available to everyone.
He doesn't understand.
Should I answer your question? You can tell me what you mean.
Yeah, go ahead. No, you.
Okay, sorry, I don't
You're
want
welcome to answer whatever you'd like, but if people have questions, come up, and then if the applicant would like to, they're welcome to come up and answer those questions.
but just a higher capacity type of antenna, so it's the equipment in the antenna that's able to handle more demand, I guess you could say. That makes sense what I'm saying.
Any other comments? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I will note that at the last meeting, we had pointed out something about the application that was just a minor detail that was updated. The application didn't list any sensitive species in the area, but this area does have the long-eared, the brown-nosed bat, and so they updated the application. So as far as we're concerned, the application is in good standing. Any other comments? Okay. Could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So made.
Second,
Okay, roll call, Board Member Freeman,
In favor.
Board Member Litton,
in favor.
Board Member Loparco,
In favor.
Board Member Chow,
In favor?
Board Member Pensy,
In favor.
and Chairperson Solomon.
In favor.
Thank you.
Thank you, those of you who asked questions or made comments. I don't mean to cut people off, but it's important that we get things on the record so people at home can hear what was said, okay? Any comment from the board?
Yeah, we were given an enormous amount of material about that application. Is that all on the village website? All right, any questions that anybody would have, I'm sure is answered in the voluminous data that was submitted with this application. It boggles the mind.
Anyone have any discussion or comments on the board? Everything seems straightforward. I think it's important to note that there is not an increase in size. So as far as us as residents are concerned, there's not really a change. I think that's the important part. So we have a resolution here. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Go through the seeker application. The short form, does the proposed action only involve the legislative adoption of a plan, local law, ordinance, administrative rule, or regulation? No. Does the proposed action require a permit, approval, or funding from any other government agency? If yes, list the agency. This is checked yes. It requires the approval of the Village of Altamont ZBA. The
We can cut ahead to here. This is what we're responsible for.
why is yours different?
Fair question. What's up, these are, what's
Yeah.
what the board needs to answer?
Yeah. Why don't I have that? Yeah, sorry about that. There's a lot of paperwork tonight. Okay. So the items that we need to go over, will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? It's not changing how it's being used now. So unless there's any discussion, I would say no or small impact may occur. Anyone want to talk about that one? No? Okay. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? 3 antennas are coming down, 3 are coming up. So I would say no or small impact.
Could I?
Yeah.
So as I understand it, the antennas are just the things that are bolted to the pole, right? So the pole is what we see, but the antennas are just the little devices that are bolted to the pole.
Yes, you
Right.
have the pole and then you have the mounts. And
Right.
then the antennas are on the mounts.
Right, because I think that's, yeah, okay.
Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? Seeing as though we're not going to see a visual change, I would say no or small impact. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of the CEA critical environmental area? Again, we're replacing 3 devices with 3 newer ones, so I would say no or small impact. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonable available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No, or small impact may occur. Any question about that?
I think she said it would require less energy? Is that true?
No, it would be the same,
Oh.
it would require more.
Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies or public-private wastewater treatment facilities? No on both of those. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? Again, it's swapping 3 for 3, so no or small impact. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? There were 3 there, there's going to be 3 after, so no or small impact may occur. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Hopefully not. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No, or small impact may occur. So based on these findings, we have determined that based on the information and analysis above and any supporting documentation, that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts. So I'll read the resolution that we have and then ask for a vote. Village of Altamont Zoning Board of Appeals Resolution granting special use permit. Whereas AT&T Mobility, the applicant, has applied to the Village of Altamont, the Village Zoning Board of Appeals, the board, for a special use permit to allow for the modification of equipment on an existing telecommunications structure located at 18 Agawam Lane, the application, and whereas the applicant requires a special use permit in accordance with section 355-33D1 of the Village Code, which requires a special use permit in the event of changes or alterations to a tower. And whereas the applicant provided materials in support of their application, including an application for special use permit, site plans including descriptions of the changes to be made, an updated lease agreement with the landowner. And whereas a public hearing on the application for a special use permit was held on February 24th, 2026. And whereas the Zoning Board of Appeals reviewed Part 2 and 3 of the SEAF and did not identify any moderate to large impacts from the proposed action. And whereas the Zoning Board of Appeals has reviewed the application and supporting materials, observed and took into consideration comments provided at the public hearing and duly deliberated on the application. And whereas the board voted to adopt proposed resolution granting approval of the special use permit, and the board has conferred with council, considered additional information submitted by the applicant, and engaged in further deliberation. Now therefore be it resolved, the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Village of Altamont hereby determines as follows. 1, that the proposed project will result in no significant adverse impacts on the environment and adopts the negative declaration with reasoned elaboration, completing its secret review of the proposed action. 2, that the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Village of Altamont hereby approves the application for special use permit. It is further resolved that the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Village of Altamont hereby authorizes and requires the Zoning Board of Appeals Chairman, the Zoning Board of Appeals Secretary, Clerk, and/or Village Attorney to take the appropriate steps to effectuate this resolution, including any filing and distribution requirements. Before we finish, anyone have any question or comment about the resolution that was provided? Then could I have a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll make that.
Second?
Okay, roll call. Board Member Freeman.
In favor.
Board Member Litton.
In favor.
Board Member McCarthy.
In favor.
Board Member Chow.
Approve?
Board Member Kennedy.
In favor.
And Chairperson Sullivan.
In favor.
Thank you.
So I'll finish reading this. Whereupon this resolution was declared adopted by the Village of Altamont Zoning Board of Appeals. That's it, yeah, all right. Thank you very much. Now all my paperwork's out of order. All right. So to the item originally listed first on your agenda, the final plat amendment for 145D Bozenkill, I'll read as soon as I find it. There we go. I'll read the public notice. Notice of public hearing, Village of Altamont, New York. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held before the Zoning Board of Appeals for the Village of Altamont at the Village Community Room, 115 Main Street, Altamont, New York, on the 24th of February, 2026, at 7 p.m. to hear all interested persons regarding an application for final plat amendment related to subdivision previously approved and located at 145D Bosanquille Road, Altamont, New York, tax map number 37.09-1-5.11. Copies of the materials related to this application shall be available at the time of the hearing and shall be available at times prior to and after the hearing at the village clerk's office during normal business hours for the purpose of inspection or procurement by interested persons. Can I have a motion
Where are
to,
those materials?
all the materials are on the website.
You just said that they would be available here. That's what you just read.
At the village office, if you'd like to get copies during normal business hours.
You said it would be here at the meeting.
I didn't say that, I don't believe.
Read it again.
Sure. Copies of the materials related to this application shall be available at the time of the hearing. You're right. They're available on the website.
So for those of us who don't have total grasp of the website, can't we get those materials?
They are, all materials are also available in a public file for each one of the items on the agenda, and those are available in the village office. So before public hearings, you can see the office.
But they noticed, said that they would be here at the meeting. They're not.
I have a copy. If you want to see it. So it's here at the hearing.
Thank you.
Could I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
Approve?
In favor.
In favor. I would invite any member of the public to come up and share their comments at this time.
Good evening. I grew up in Altamont.
Could you state your name, please?
Yeah. I'll just read what I have. Good evening. My name is Mike Testa, and I'm a homeowner here in Altamont. One of the reasons I chose to put down roots here is because of the natural landscape, the quiet, the wetlands, and the sense that this is still a community tied to its environment. Altamont feels different from more developed areas because nature is still part of everyday life here. The wooded areas, the streams, and the wetlands aren't just scenery. They're part of the character of the village and why people choose to live here in the first place. That's why this project concerns me. The area includes wetlands that have been acknowledged not only locally, but through federal mapping and by New York DEC. These are real ecosystems that support biodiversity and help define the environmental identity of the region. In addition, the New York DEC Environmental Resource Mapper indicates that bats listed as endangered or threatened are in the vicinity, including the northern long-eared bat, which is federally endangered. These species are already under pressure across New York, and when habitats become fragmented or disturbed, they don't have many places left to go. As a younger resident thinking about the future of this community, how we treat our wildlife matters to me. To me, this isn't just about one amendment or one project. It's about the kind of community we want Altamont to remain. Once natural systems like wetlands and wildlife habitats are disrupted, they're incredibly hard and often impossible to restore. I'm not here out of anger. I'm here because I genuinely care about this village and want to see thoughtful decisions that preserve what makes America unique. Respectfully, I ask the board to take the long view and consider whether this amendment aligns with the values that draw people to the village in the first place. Protecting our wetlands and the wildlife that depend on them is part of protecting Altamont itself. Thank you for your time and for your service to this community.
Thank you very
guys.
much.
Good evening. My name's John Polk. I live at 101 Bozenkill Road, so my property is directly adjacent to this property. And my property is the property onto which the wetlands that are delineated in this program, in this proposal, will flow. So I have a direct interest and concern about any changes to wetlands that are delineated here. I want to speak first to the availability of the materials, because I did access the materials that were on the web. And the map that was posted there was not legible. And so I did check at the table over here after I arrived to find out what was actually, what I think is being proposed. And I'm still not certain. So I worked during the day. I couldn't come to the office during regular business hours. But I have a concern in trying to figure out exactly what is being proposed here. And I have a great concern about whether these proposed changes will affect the wetlands and the neighboring properties, including my own. So I'm hoping for some answers and feedback on those issues.
Thank you.
Hey, Jim, it seems like there's a lot of confusion about what is being requested. Should we represent what, because it,
Invite the applicant up to share the
Yeah.
details of
Yeah,
their
that's what I'm noticing too, and,
Yeah.
maybe the applicant should do a little presentation prior to the public, because, not only this application, but maybe the prior application too, some of the answers can be answered. I'd be happy to do that.
Sure.
Good evening, Luigi Palesci with ABD Engineers and Surveyors. So we're here amending the previously approved subdivision, and what we're proposing to do is the existing home at Lot 145C is looking to acquire additional land. All we're doing is extending the back property lines 75 feet by the same width as 100 feet to be added to that existing lot, that existing home that's being built. All the prior subdivision approvals that were granted, as far as deed restricting the wetlands, are the same as what you're seeing here today. All we're doing is just doing a simple lot line amendment, and the wetlands that were previously approved and what are shown on our map are not being disturbed. They're being deed restricted. So that's it. It's just a lot line amendment. If I have an 11 by 17 map here. I don't know if the online version was blurry or not, but
I do have a question.
this is a smaller version of it, but I can certainly show you exactly where the lines are.
If it's an amendment to 145C, why was it presented as an amendment to 145D?
Because it changes the lot area of 145D. So 7,500 square feet gets added to 145C, and the 7,500 square feet gets reduced from Lot 4. Yeah, we're not proposing, further subdivision. All we're doing is here for a lot line amendment. We were here last month. We thought it was that simple, but because of some certain conditions with the prior approvals, any changes to this map had to come before this public hearing. So that's why we're here. So I hope that answers some questions.
Sir, excuse me.
He asked.
I know, any questions, I need people to come up so it's on the record.
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
sorry.
I was just asking, how will this benefit them? How will they be able to use the land differently with the new 7,500 square feet?
Yeah, so adding the 7,500 square feet behind that existing home will allow them to gain access and utilize the 7,500 square feet. So they're increasing their lot size by 7,500 square feet.
Luigi, you only have the small version?
I do, yeah.
Thank you for bringing the map. Adding that 7,500 square feet does cross a wetland. And so how is that affecting the wetland that crosses that property right in the middle of it?
Yeah, so this is the
wetland property here.
Yep. Yeah, so they can certainly access by foot to get over onto this side.
Okay. But in terms of use of that wetland, how is that restricted?
All right, can you ask the question one more time?
In terms of use of the wetland that will be incorporated into this addition, how is that restricted?
It's restricted within their deed, so there's signage that gets posted around that existing wetlands that cuts through the property. But they could always build a footbridge or access it via foot to get on the other side of that wetlands. And that is one of the reasons why they're interested in this house, is because they're interested in purchasing the 7,500 square feet so that they have a backyard. Right now, that wetland is closer to the home. So once they can get over that wetland, now they have 7,500 square feet that they can use, put a shed back there, and so forth.
So that change, by adding that additional property, will increase use of the property, use of the land adjacent and directly over or right up to and beside the wetland.
That's correct. Yep. But the wetlands are not being disturbed, they're deed restricted, and there's signage posted.
In the wetlands themselves, however, any use up to and beside the wetland can still have runoff into the wetland.
Well, any proposal has to go through a building permit, so if they're going to install a shed or cut trees on the other side.
But they will not need a permit to apply fertilizers to their lawn. They will not need a permit to apply pesticides in their lawn, and that stuff flows right into the creek, into the wetlands, and that comes on my property.
Yeah, and there's other neighbors too that are, you doing the same thing that this fella's probably going to do.
Does that make it right? I have a question. On this
So-
Mary Beth Spring.
Thank you.
From 157 Boson Kill Road. And I have a question looking at this map, that there, since 2025, the federal wetlands now have a program where there has to be a 100-foot easement around it. So, one, the applicant said that this property was being difficult to sell because of having a lack of a backyard. But I think most of us know in this room, this property has been sold. So I'm not sure what his issue is any longer in his application regarding that. I'm not sure why.
Can you talk in the microphone, please?
I'm not sure why anybody would want to have property that's restricted if they're asking for a larger backyard. That doesn't really run through to me. Just another point I wanted to mention really quickly is I've checked, several people in the audience have checked. There are no 2026 zoning board meeting minutes on the website. So that gentleman that said he couldn't find
I just
them.
got it confirmed, is that we've got the draft copy until it gets approved tonight. Once it gets approved tonight, then it will go on.
It's not helpful to tell people to refer to the minutes of a previous meeting when there are no minutes there.
That's a valid point. Thank you.
You mean for last month's meeting?
This is helpful.
For every meeting, what the day after, the video for the meeting goes up on the website. So if you go to the homepage, there is a section on the left side, and it'll say meeting videos, and all the videos are there, so you can watch the whole meeting.
Are there any members of the public that'd like to come up and make comment on this proposal?
Phil DeVitro, Indian Meadows Path. I wasn't here last month because I thought the proposal was, just a simple lot line thing, because I was told that he couldn't sell the property. So then, talking to people, They told me it's a lot more than that. And when I was looking at the maps, I said to myself, why would anybody want extra property on wetlands? They can't do anything with it as far as I'm understood. Now, to go back a little bit, this piece of property has all kinds of water issues. I live right across the street from all of this. Now, all the water from the storm drains go right across the street. So they put this sewer system in, and where the property is on D, the water from coming down Bozenkill comes across the road and goes into D. Now, I want to show you pictures. On June 7th, there was a bad rainstorm, and it washed out all the driveways on Bozenkill. Well, when I say washed out, they're all undermined. And this is what the property looks like after that storm. Okay, this was a brand-new driveway that was only there 1 week. So then, that's when he took it off the market. And this is the other side of that house. So all of this water from Bozenkill comes across and goes right into this area here. Right? Now, I've had the county out there numerous times. And the county knows there's a big problem over there, but I don't know if the money's there because that drainage ditch has to be done all over. The pipes going under the driveways are insufficient for the amount of water that comes down the road. So what happens is it overflows and goes down to D, and you can see where it all ran off. He had to rip that brand-new driveway out the next month and put a whole new driveway in. So this is, whoever bought that house, this is gonna happen again, until the county can come in and redo those drainage ditches. The supervisor was out there last June, but he couldn't tell me anything about doing anything because about the money issue. He said it's gonna be a lot of money to do it. So there's a lot more to consider here than just a simple lot line.
That problem
proposal.
starts way up on end of Sunset Road, by the way, on a different property that's not even on that map.
Okay.
From a guy who's altering everything across the road from my house, I'm at 147.
Right.
Directly across from me, they drained that wetland, nobody cared about. That was a complete wetland across the road from me, nobody cared about that.
Sir, can I have you come up,
Drained
please?
that.
Can you come up, please? I want to hear what you have to say, and I think it's important that everyone has an opportunity to hear that. And sir,
So,
the gentleman that was just up here, can you please put your name and your address on these? And if we can keep these,
Yeah, you keep them.
that'd be great.
so Steve
Thank you.
Simmons, 25 Sunset Drive, and so no one knows this water problem better than I do, because I own most, I don't think I created it. So, as you all know, the railroad track is a dam that basically collects the water, and then wherever there's a culvert pipe through that railroad track, the water then comes downhill. And so, in June, the 3 culvert pipes that serve this water plugged or overflowed, and actually, the railroad track, which acts as the dam, no longer was a dam. The water went over the railroad tracks and then over my property, Edward's properties, and the other
My property.
properties. And one of the problems is the water flow was so great that it actually blew out one of the box culverts, and the main box culvert that drains this water. And so, one, it was a unique rain event, and I have spent basically since I bought the property in '88 trying to harness this water and bring it down to Bozenkill. Because it's all pass-through water. And so there's no easy way to handle it. There's no village help. The railroad track has fixed the culverts. But I would say now that the water flow through the one big box culvert is probably 30% greater than it used to be because of the railroad tracks and their work to try to get the railroad track up to snuff. It's a problem that the village and the county, I would agree, have been slow to deal with. It took a long time for them to expand Edwards culvert pipe to handle some of that water. And so that has been historically the problem. It's passed through water, and it has been an endless problem. And it flooded, flooded my property. And it's taken me basically 6 months to rebuild the drainage ditch, the swale that brings the water down. But it's a huge problem. Again, this is passed through water. I've built a retention pond to try to slow the water.
I would just remind the public that we are making comments on this specific proposal.
No, you're correct. We're getting way off topic here. Trent Benninger, 147 Bozenkill, my property is directly adjacent to these properties. We're getting off track here, clearly. What we're talking about is the area directly across the street from, on this map, which is not even depicted. When I moved in, mid-90s, that was a swamp. It's a complete swamp. In the springtime, it was deafening, the frogs and the noise from that swamp. It is a wetland. Wetlands are important, like we're trying to say here. Wetlands are a sponge. Wetlands absorb overflow water instead of sending it clean through. It's not pass through, it's a sponge. It's supposed to be a sponge for overflow water. He has taken a trench, cleaned through the base of that, drained the wetland, made it dry land now, and now when there's overflow water, it overflows correctly, you're right, onto the properties across the street, mine being one of them. Flooded my property, flooded my garage, had this water in my garage. So, point being, and we're way off topic on this, wetlands are important because they're a sponge for these events. That's what we're talking about with the other property. This is the sidebar. Just wanted to mention that fact, okay? He did drain the wetlands across the street from my house, and that had impacts. So, the wetlands that they're talking about, that they're draining, or potentially affecting, that, I'm not saying they're draining, I'm saying potentially affecting. Wetlands are important for that reason. That's all I got to say.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you. You never looked at me, ever. I talked to you 3 times, you never even looked at me. And you're looking at me now like you're my neighbor.
Guys.
You're not my neighbor, shut up.
Gentlemen.
Not now.
I think I can settle everything. I'm the purchaser. Wesley Price, 145C, Bozenkill. Seems like it's a lightning rod. Hi, Luigi, how are you? Nice to meet you. Seems like it's a lightning rod topic. The gentleman in the back, I'm an insurance broker. I'm purchasing flood insurance, so I know what I'm doing. I got my first grandchild coming. My son's in Italy in the U.S. Army, and he's moving back to New Jersey. So there is usable land behind the wetlands. It's not like the entire thing is wetlands. So we're gonna put a swing set up and just, use a little bit of the space, a shed, and that's it. So for me, it's important because, as Luigi said, having a little bridge to go over, be able to get back there. I'm just probably like the rest of you, just interested in the wildlife and protecting it. So in case anybody's wondering, that's what's going on. There's nothing else. I mean, we're getting way off topic here, clearly. It's 7,500 feet, a lot line adjustment. It was part of the transaction for real estate, and it kind of dwarfed into all this. So we're clearly way off topic here. Nothing's being changed. We've already clarified that. It's deed restricted. It can't be done, and I'm not going to do that. So just wanted to make sure everybody knows what's going on.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Any other comments from the audience? Yeah. Can you come up to the microphone, though? Sorry.
We need a microphone that we pass around.
Thank you.
Hi, Deborah Hext, Whippleway Altamont. I'm the alternate on the zoning board. I just have a question. If our engineers had been able to delineate the wetlands, I saw that they were delineated in November of 2025, but you really can't do that in the winter. So I don't know if our engineers have a chance to look at this and know that, yes, indeed, it's not going to really disrupt anything, it's not changing anything, because, for me, that would be a concern.
Absolutely. And no, our engineer has not had an opportunity because of the winter and the snow to do that.
Okay.
So that's a huge factor.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say the wetlands was delineated by Kevin Weed at Van Gilder's office. He's the wetland biologist. When he went out there, I don't think there was snow cover. Now, obviously, you do have snow cover. So I can see your concern if you went out today or, last month. But back in November, he saw what he had to see and he provided the maps to us.
But that wasn't the Village of Altamont's engineer.
Well, the village
Everything has to be
engineer.
reviewed by our own.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Yeah, now it's obviously hard to see that with this condition outside, so, understood.
We did have one letter, two letters come in, and I'll read those. One from a Philip Hans. Oh, sorry.
I don't think we're done talking.
That's fine.
You want to read your letter now?
No, go ahead. No, audience first.
Okay. So, very best friend, 157 Bozeman Hill, again. And I'm here to address the environment concerns related to the proposed amendment. In the applicant's environmental assessment form, question 13 confirms the presence of federally regulated wetland, yet answers no to its effect on existing wetlands. How is this information determined to make this answer? What information was used? Question 15 indicates no species or animals or associated habitats listed as threatened or endangered will be infected. Yet we know we have bats that are protected. Question 17A and B acknowledges stormwater discharge flowing to adjacent properties and storm piping to the wetlands. So this isn't just about making somebody's backyard bigger. In that I am an adjacent to lot 4, I am asking for further documentation that this stormwater discharge will indeed not affect my property. I can say changes on the east side of our adjacent boundary line in the past have indeed negatively impacted my property. Because our property is hydrologically connected to this drainage system, any increase in hard surface or change in runoff patterns could impact the wetland's function and increase the flooding risk affecting our property. Question 2 states that no other government agency permits are required. Does not storm piping to wetlands make, at the very minimum, a new storm water pollution prevention plan? Should permits not be applied to Albany County Department of Public Works, Albany County Planning Board? And because of the very possible disturbance of the federal wetlands, a federal permit under Section 404 of the Clean Water Act should be warranted. Even if these wetlands themselves are not directly disturbed, adjusting a lot line can increase the buildable land next to them, allowing for more building footprint, driveways, and pavement closer to the wetland boundaries, which will in turn affect them. In addition to these questions, I respectfully ask clarification on the following. Does this amendment increase the amount of buildable land outside the deed-restricted wetland boundary on Lot 4 compared to the originally recorded plan? If that area has increased, even modestly, could it affect the development and assumptions reviewed under SECRA? Am I saying that correctly? SECRA. My concern is whether this amendment increases the buildable land and therefore alters the environmental assumptions underlying the original SECRA review. New York State significantly expanded its freshwater wetlands jurisdiction effective January 1st, 2025. This now, among other requirements, requires a 100-foot adjacent buffer area. Can the board clarify whether these wetland boundaries showed on the plot that have been firmly confirmed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, or they are based solely on a consult delineation? Given that the original delineation dates back to 2004 and then was later confirmed only by a site walkover, the delineation that delineation report was conducted in, let me try again here. The delineation report was conducted in November of 2004, over 20 years ago, and then later confirmed by a site walkover in 2021, now 5 years ago. So we are working off of information generated 25 years ago. Several prior board members have raised concerns over the age of this report as far back as 2019. My question is, has there been a current formal judicial determination from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers or an updated wetlands determination from New York State DEC under this revised state law? In light of the updated state wetland protection of 1925, has the board considered whether a supplemental environmental review would be warranted? What other government agencies is the board intending to require permits from? My concern is that the environmental protections imposed in the original approval remain fully intact under current regulatory and climate conditions. It is important to view this site within the broader wetland system. Federal mapping shows hydraulic connectivity from the project area into the Bosanquille Creek, downstream wetlands connecting to the Water Valete Reservoir, a drinking water provider, then going beyond that. My point is this is a part of a continuous watershed system rather than an isolated feature and has to be taken very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody, just before we keep going, my name's James LaValle. I work for the law firm Young Summer. We serve as outside counsel for the Village of Altamont. I just want to clear up two things real quickly, which I know James has touched on, specifically regarding seeker and the EAF, which we have discussed and mentioned a few times tonight. What exactly is being discussed here right now in the proposal that's put forward by the applicant is not to actually build anything on this land. So, ma'am, when you brought up seeker questions such as creating stormwater discharge points, the reason those are answered no in an application such as tonight is because the applicant is not actually proposing building something else. What they're proposing doing, as Luigi mentioned earlier, is actually adjusting the lot line. So that's what we're here debating tonight. Your comments, of course, you're free to speak and say whatever you want, but I want to make sure that everyone's very clear about that no actual building is being proposed this evening, and this is about adjusting the lot line, taking that land from Lot D and moving it into C in the 7,500 square foot area. Thank you all. I just want to make sure that everyone's very clear about what exactly is going on and why seeker or an EAF may have been answered the way it was. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rob Spring. I'm doing cleanup on the Spring household. I too reside at 157 Bosanquille, and that was my wife that was just here. So I'm going to be looking at this from a different perspective, but I will say that we are hydrologically connected to this adjacent property, meaning we have water running through 1/3 of our land. Now, we have been the caretakers of 157 for 41 years, and we continue to want to take good care of it. But there are some disturbing things that have been happening on that land down back, behind ravines. So I'm going to share with you a different perspective. I'm also going to share a different perspective on this current survey, which I think we should take a very close look at. So starting off, I would say the applications themselves. Neighbor, welcome to the community. I hope you get a swing set in there, I really do. We're grandparents and I know what you're looking at, so, and we all thank you for your son's service, by the way. Both applications, the application for the lot line amendment waiver and the final plat amendment, was based on one simple thing. I'll read it to you. It's a quote, and it's from the lot amendment waiver. Lot 3, 145C, Boson Kill Road, has been on the market for a long time. And every buyer is interested in a more usable backyard. Since this property has wetlands behind the home, it limits usable areas, and by allowing this lot line adjustment, it provides more usable land for future homeowners. You should recognize that because that was presented at the January 27th. Tonight, the follow-up application with the short environmental assessment, quote, "The purpose of this is to amend the final plot to allow a lot line adjustment between lots 3 and 4. Simple, and it's to your point. It's what you were saying we should be focusing on. But what I'm suggesting is these should be dismissed. We sold the house. This is not a hardship that was presented in the original amendment. They wanted more land to try to sell a house. The house is sold. And if the gentleman and the owner wants to come forth and say, hey, this is something I want to do, absolutely. We respect that. But this particular amendments are really no longer applicable in my eyes. Second point, please consider having ABD engineers and surveyors take a closer look at their lot adjustment plan. ABD engineers and surveyors had made changes that now include roadways on this land. You can take a look and you can see that they have roadways coming out, connecting to Boson Kill Road. There are no roadways. What they have done, and I'm not saying Ken Romansky has done this, because I never met the man. But I know previous owners that have gone down back using backhoes, using their Kubotas, and they straightened out the stream flow. In fact, they came up to me and offered if they wanted to do my property too. Why? Because as you heard earlier, wetlands are a sponge. They worked perfectly fine before we started changing water flows. Look to the left of Lot 4, and you will see what's designated as a dirt road. If you look back behind other houses to the right, you will see old roads. Why? Because they've been placed there. There is no connection to the Boson Kill Road. If you take a look at that map, it almost looks like there's a driveway. It opens right up onto Boson Kill, but it doesn't exist. We're changing the land, and it's being put on this survey map so that it's accepted. And once it's accepted, they can keep coming back to it and drawing upon, well, we have a road here, or this road goes all the way down and back. Now, this is segmentation. This is chewing away and grooming the property for construction. I don't have to tell you that. You've been here and you do this, and God bless you that you do. I really mean it. However, if ABD engineers and surveyors want to make the claims towards the accuracy of their current map, fine. But then they should also provide an explanation to you and to this community. Why are these roadways now being delineated when they were never there before? And if they are put in place now, don't you think we should have New York State involved? Look at the roadway, by the way. It goes all the way down back and it crosses over a wetland. My next consideration, I think we should delay tonight. You see, there's an interesting map note. Never saw it before, but I'll read it to you. The map note, if this survey is accepted, will stand as follows. And I think it's something the community should know. An existing 60-foot wide easement for ingress and egress for water and for utilities between Troy Miller, Barber, Federigo, and VAMR development. The said easement will be more particularly described in the future. End quote. A 60-foot wide easement? Where? I can't answer that question. I asked this board to delay any action until Ken Romananski, Troy Miller, and Barbara Federico can explain how this 60-foot wide easement will impact this land. I am suggesting patience from this zoning board and from our community to wait for future descriptions regarding this 60-foot wide easement that clearly is being added to this survey before you, letting you know that it's going to be running water and utilities into this land. Please consider, you heard a lot of environmental concerns. It's listing the type of bats, and we don't have to go over that again. But waiting for this aforementioned easement, and what will that bring? Well, that's huge, because that involves Lot D, not C. But once we start cutting in with amendments to Lot D, it opens it up. And that's how segmentation works. DEC's future re-involvement may be needed to accurately reflect the impact that this easement will have, but we don't know because we're being asked to make a decision tonight. Delay this. Finally, please consider drinking water. It's something that hasn't come up, but once this land starts opening up, once land starts drying out for development, I would ask the following. Think infrastructure capacity. It deserves your consideration because particularly our drinking water, the village has previously acknowledged sensitivity around water supplies before additional residential intensity is enabled through an amendment and perhaps later on down the road. But you're in the seat right now to look ahead. Better there than being in the seat trying to look back going, uh-oh, what did we do? Water in Altamont is a concern. It would be prudent to clearly understand whether long-term water reserves and infrastructure capacity is truly sufficient. From SECRA perspective, infrastructure constraints are part of the cumulative impact that's coming before us tonight. It has come before us back in 2024. We were there when we talked about it before. And before your time, we were here again. These are the considerations I'm asking you to take home with you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Say something quick.
Sure, come on up.
You know, you may wonder why just a simple lot line, all these people are here. It's a lot more than that. I've been here 22 years, and there's one proposal after the other for that piece of property. And he said, the guy will say this thing, say that thing, then he sells the property. Now Ted bought the property, and he wanted to put 26 homes in the back. So we're a little bit suspicious about him wanting to drain wetlands because that wetland in the back is all wet. So anything he does, we're suspicious. So anytime anything comes up on that piece of property, you're gonna see all these people here because it's how we feel. So I know he just bought a new house there, you know, but he got himself into a hornet's nest here because all the neighbors, that's the way we feel. So we allowed 3 houses to go in, and that's all we want to see, so.
Any other members of the public that wish to come up and speak on this? I want to thank everyone for their comments. Believe me, they were heard. There were a couple letters that came in that I'll read. First one from Philip Hans, 145 Bozenkill. To whom it may concern, the following concerns and/or questions are as follows. 1, did the builder have permission to put a drainage pipe behind 145A and B? If not, was it put in to drain the water from going down to the wetlands? If not, isn't this a federal offense because they control the wetlands? Also, does approval need to come from the Army Corps of Engineers? I'm willing to show you where they are located. Number 2, I have concerns for the creek at the bottom of the hill, if this needs some kind of prior approval or who is responsible for this. Number 3, another concern I have is the pumping station, who is responsible for maintaining and repairing the sewer and water systems. Me and my wife, and I'm sure everyone else in Altamont, are paying extra expenses already, and we don't want this to rise further in the future. Number 4, next, there will be more traffic on Bozenkill Road, which is already hard to control as we have some speeders already. The contractor and delivery trucks had no respect for the speed limit that has been put there. 5, the contractor was watering the lawns on 145A and C every day for hours at a time. Abiding by the odd, even water days set by our village, the guidelines were not taken appropriately. 6, lastly, I thought the contractor was to put in sidewalks. That hasn't happened. These are my personal thoughts and apprehensions regarding the future building on Bozenkill Road. Thank you for your time and consideration regarding these matters. And then a second from a Christine Lee of I write as an interested stakeholder with immediate family residing adjacent to the Bozenkill Road subdivision to formally express concern regarding the adequacy of environmental review associated with the proposed final plat amendment. The record reflects that this subdivision contains federally regulated wetlands. The delineation underlying the original approval was conducted in November 2004 and later confirmed only by a site walkover in 2021. Since that time, hydrological conditions, precipitation intensity, and regulatory standards have evolved. Additionally, New York State expanded its freshwater wetlands jurisdiction effective January 1st, 2025, broadening the scope of state-level oversight. Under these circumstances, continued reliance on legacy delineation data without documented confirmation under the current federal and state standards raises legitimate questions as to whether the board is fully satisfying its obligation under SECRA and applicable wetland protections. Even when no direct encroachment is proposed, a lot line amendment that increases buildable land adjacent to regulated wetlands may materially affect development intensity, hard surface area, and runoff characteristics, all of which were environmental assumptions underlining the original SECRA determination. Incremental amendments must not operate as de facto expansions of development potential without corresponding environmental scrutiny. Accordingly, I formally request a written response addressing the following. 1, does the proposed amendment increase the amount of buildable land outside the deed-restricted wetland boundary on Lot 4 relative to the originally recorded plat? 2, have the wetland boundaries relied upon been formally confirmed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and/or New York State DEC under current regulatory standards? 3, has the board evaluated whether this amendment alters the environmental assumptions underlining the original SECRA review? 4, has the board considered whether supplemental environmental review is warranted, considering updated state wetland jurisdiction and the acknowledged stormwater discharge to regulated areas? This correspondence constitutes a formal request for assurance that all applicable federal and state environmental protections are being properly observed. Given the regulatory implications, I am consulting with legal counsel at Hodgson Russ LLP regarding compliance with Clean Water Act, the New York Freshwater Wetlands Act, and SECRA requirements. In the absence of adequate confirmation, I will pursue review through appropriate federal and state oversight authorities. I trust the board will provide clarity on the record. Any other comments from the public or the applicant?
Yeah, just a couple points that I wanted to make in regards to some of the public comment. As far as the dirt road that is shown on this latest plat, this was surveyed many times, and I think the dirt road that's shown on this map was surveyed back 20-some-odd years ago, and that's why it was put on this map. It may have overgrown, but there are always dirt trails on this property going back 20-something years. If you want us to remove that, we can certainly remove that from the final plat. As far as the note that he referred to, we've got to remember that this subdivision, the 4-lot subdivision, was approved back in 2022, okay? And seeker was granted in 2022. When seeker is granted prior to the New York State DEC rule of the wetlands and the jurisdictional from 2025, we would be exempt because seeker was already granted on this project. We're not proposing any building, as they had mentioned. We're moving a lot line, okay? Moving lot lines, this board would review the movement of those lot lines and making sure that we're meeting the code, right? We're not asking for a variance. Anybody can go and move a lot line, okay? Like, you know, that's all we're looking to do here. The wetlands stay the same. We're deed restricting them as approved back in 2022. And I have a copy of the approved and filed subdivision map from 2022, and the note that he had mentioned is on that plat, okay? My understanding is whatever sales that were done over the years between Troy Miller and Mr. Romansky, there's agreements. You can have easements. We could agree to have an easement over your land, right? Doesn't mean that we're putting in a line. If we are going to propose something in the future, we have to come before this board and we'll see you again. We're not doing that here tonight. All we're doing is moving the line so that this homeowner can come here and be your neighbor, okay? So I know you have, some objection and concerns from 20 years of history on this project. I haven't been part of this project 20 years. The firm, ABD, has. And, my partner that had passed away, I know represented Mr. Romansky over the years, and I got involved in 2022 when we came in and got this 4-lot subdivision approved. Yes, we went through public hearings. We designed the drainage system on this property, and it was reviewed by the village engineer. So we did go back and forth, and we have everything that was installed to date was installed per the plans that was reviewed and approved by this board and the village engineer. So I hope there's, clarification and we can move forward with this lot line adjustment. And if there's, future development, I'm not saying there is or there isn't. There probably will be. I don't know when, right? But you have lot number 4 that is to remain, and if the owner or whoever he sells or whatever, if we come in and, we got to make application for, if it's one single family home, we would have to, have an application in for that. So I would put that aside and think about what we're here for tonight is a simple lot line adjustment. The homeowner of the new property is here, and you heard him spoke, and regardless of what the application says, like, we put that application together prior to him purchasing this. So he's already putting risk buying this property, thinking that this is a simple lot line adjustment, moving lines around, and he now owns it. So if you were to reject this lot line, I've never heard of a lot line adjustment being rejected. We're moving lines, okay? I've been doing this 20 years myself, and, you know, as long as we meet the code and we don't have to go for a variance, then we should be able to move these lines regardless, because we're not proposing anything else at this time. So just wanted to clarify a couple things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, just want to know the clarification. Usually, I think when we proposed it in 2022, there was a 3-lot subdivision that was approved. The 4th lot, you'd have to come back and start all over.
No, it's a 4-lot subdivision. 3 new homes, 1 remaining undeveloped piece. If that 4th lot was to be developed, then yes, we have to come back. That's what I was saying. But it's a 4-lot subdivision, right? You start with 1 and we end up with 4. 2 of those are developed, right? They got houses on it. There's 1 more to go. But you still count the 4th undeveloped lot as a lot. So that's where I'm referring to as 4 lots.
You're agreeing, though, that you would have to come back before the board for that?
Absolutely, yes. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I just want to be clear that a public hearing doesn't mean that there's going to be action taken. It's an opportunity for us to hear comments, to consider them before making action. Also, the fact that the village engineer has not finished their review is really important to our ability to make a decision on this matter. Considering the amount of comments that we've heard, I would like to propose keeping the public hearing open until the engineer has an opportunity to complete their review. And so any decision on this matter would be tabled until after the engineer's review. Any conversation on the board? Agree, disagree with that?
I agree with that.
Okay. Do I need to make a motion to keep it open? Okay. Could I have a motion to keep the public hearing open on this until our next meeting? And table any discussion until we have the engineer's review?
I will make that motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, so that was a motion by Chairman Whitten and seconded by Al Freeman. Roll call, Board Member Freeman,
In favor.
Board Member Whitten,
In favor.
Board Member Parkell,
In favor.
Board Member Trout,
In favor.
Board Member Kinsey,
Against.
and Board Chairperson Sullivan.
In favor.
Thank you.
I appreciate everyone's comments and encourage people who are interested to look at what's being proposed. If you haven't had an opportunity to see the plans, if you can make a time to come to the village office to see the full plan before the next meeting, and anyone is welcome to come back and make comments once we have the review, and we'll continue from there. Thank you. On the agenda, yeah. We have one more public hearing. So many papers. Okay. I'll read the third notice of public hearing. Excuse me.
Meeting is still going, people.
Notice of public hearing, Village of Altamont, New York. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held before the Zoning Board of Appeals for the Village of Altamont at the Village Community Room, 115 Main Street, Altamont, New York, on the 24th day of February 2026 at 7 p.m. to hear all interested persons regarding an application for the special use permit by, nope, that's the wrong one. Sorry about that. To hear all interested persons regarding an application for area variance to allow for the construction of a 40 by 60 pole barn storage building at 104 Main Street, Altamont, New York, tax map number 37.19-1-26. Copies of the materials related to this application shall be available at the time of the hearing and shall be available at times prior to and after the hearing at the village clerk's office during normal business hours for the purpose of inspection and procurement by interested persons. Before we begin, is the applicant here? Would you like to come up and share any information about your proposal?
At least you got a smaller fan club.
That was kind of heated, but no, pretty much what I'm looking to do is just put up a 40 by 60 building. As far as visibility is my biggest stressor, you know. When you're coming up Main Street, looking to your right, I have a row of arborvitaes going down the right-hand side. The only people that are going to see it, which was my neighbor Howie Gage, he wasn't able to make it tonight. He was going to come. Willie Buchanan, Maurice McCormick, you know, they're all close neighbors of mine. I've lived in the village my whole life. I was born there. You know, my grandfather built the house. The Gages have owned their land since for the last 100 years. So basically just stressing the fact that the visibility of that particular building is going to be extremely difficult to see from the road. The only immediate neighbors are going to be able to see it. I also own a landscaping company. I always live to keep my property nice, clean, neat, and pretty. And as far as, you know, that goes, it's not going to be just a plain old building that, you know, is going to be an eyesore. You know, I have intentions of making it look very similar to the house, coloring and all that kind of stuff. So besides that, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Any members of the audience wish to come up and speak on this? We did receive one letter, and I will read that. Concerns and comments relating to the variance request at 104 Main Street for the construction of an accessory structure. A, an undesirable change would be provided if the siding and the roof of the building were allowed to be of metal material. A previous building of this same type was required to have non-metal siding and shingled roof at 156 Main Street. Granting of this variance request would most likely be a detriment to the village as well as nearby properties. B, whether the benefit sought is achievable by another method, building proposal would be as stated by applicant for storage of a motorhome. Nearby storage facilities could accommodate this as well as local fairground facilities. C, substantial variance request. A allowable height of 15 feet is standard. A variance request of 14 feet, nearly double the allowable height, is considered a substantial request by any standard. D, statements A through C would support the reasons for adverse impact on the physical appearance of the village, neighborhood, and village. The building, height, roof, and siding materials would be out of character. With regard to the issue of a self-created hardship for a variance, certainly the height request variance would be self-created with the proposed purchase of a large motorhome to store inside on the property. The zoning laws are created to protect the appearance of the village of Altamont as well as the homeowner's largest investment value. Thank you for your consideration. Concerned Citizens Committee. Sure.
I am aware of the village codes, obviously, with the reason why you're applying for the variance. My biggest thing is obviously I knew codes have changed, so on and so forth. One of the main reasons why I chose to go with metal siding was just the fact of, yes, it is a larger building, is the maintenance aspect of things. Driving up and down the road of Main Street, you look to your left, look to your right, you see a lot of buildings, secondary structures that are just as large, if not larger, than that actual building is going to be. I'm thinking long-term maintenance as far as, other options to put wood siding on a building. You and I all know that you drive up and down the village, no offense, and obviously has no judgment on anybody, but, wood siding is very hard to keep up with. Things rot, things, look very like an eyesore. Metal siding is I guess it's very vague. I mean, you can get metal siding made to look like anything. They make a board and batten metal siding. They make standard aluminum siding that you can put on the house, I mean, it's to say metal, to make it, I understand kind of sort of with the reasoning behind it, maybe just because it's going to look more of an industrial look or more of a whichever, but the aesthetics of what my house looks like and what my property looks like is obviously something I strive for. I want something to look nice. I have no intentions to make it look industrial, no intentions to make it look like a commercial building, no intentions to, make it an eyesore. Then going back to the building structure, I mean, at the end of the day, it's my land, it's my property. If I have the land, I have the property to be able to store something of my own, I want to do it that way, That's pretty much where I feel and how I stand with that, and that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor. So I'll read the two parts of the code that are really the key here. So 355-52-3. Or sorry, 355-31A. In a residential district, no accessory building shall have a height in excess of 15 feet, except as provided in 355-16A, which doesn't apply to this property. So that's one piece to consider. And then the siding, building facades, exterior materials of new construction shall be compatible with those traditionally used in the village and may include wood or wood-simulated clapboard, board and batten, or shingles, vinyl, red, common brick, natural stone, and man-made or processed masonry materials if they simulate brick or stone and have the texture and architectural features sufficiently similar to that of the natural material to be compatible. Primary facade materials such as stucco, sprayed-on textured surfaces, surface finishes, modular metal panels, and concrete blocks are not permitted. I would ask the board for any discussion on this.
Well, I certainly have an accessory structure that's more than 14 feet high, and I know that there are quite a few in the village. So that's, but on the other hand, we have somebody in the village who feels that this is going to be an undesirable change.
Well, I could see if it was like right next to the road, right on Main Street. I mean, it won't be, just at the depth of his property. I only know this because I've been driving by it most of my life. The way the house is, and as far back as this thing's gonna be, It could probably go up another 5 feet and you're not gonna see it. So, I mean, you know, he's applied for the variance and everything. It's just not, you're not gonna see it. And I'm pretty sure he's gonna keep it nice. Pretty much everything else on that property is very nice, so, and well upkept, my opinion.
Any other discussion? Yeah, I mean, I also have an accessory structure that is over that height, and it fits in with my neighbors and the overall character. So I would doubt that the height is necessarily the sticking point for anyone. Let me read through the applicant's area variance conditions. We all have a copy of this. Number one, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance. I think it seems like the sentiment of the board is that the height wouldn't be a detriment, considering your neighbor has a very tall barn that sits up on a hill too. And that your property is right next to a business. So, number two, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. This is to facilitate the purchase of a motorhome. So, would there be other ways that you could achieve storage of that? Yes. Number three, whether the requested area variance is substantial. Yes, I agree with the letter writer that it is a substantial request for 14 additional feet. Does it make it out of character for his property and the village? Not necessarily. Number four, whether the proposed variance will have adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. The applicant answered no. I would agree with that. Number five, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The applicant said no, just looking to have a taller structure than the variance allows. So yes, that would be self-created. When we consider the metal siding, and Deb, maybe with your experience you can weigh in on this. As far as I know, no building in the village has been granted a variance for metal siding.
I can say though, and Jake, I don't know if you're proposing metal or vinyl. I just had a shed built and it's vinyl, back and forth, and from a distance you wouldn't know that it wasn't.
They make the metal the same exact way, you wouldn't know if it was wood or not, you know? That's where I stress the whole fact of.
Thank you.
I don't remember exactly what you read about the code and the detail of everything, but the fact of saying metal, you know, is something that, it's a very broad term, you know, like I was gonna put a type of metal on there that is going to be nice. It's gonna look like you said, the vinyl siding. You can make it just like the board and batten, you know, just the fact that it's being metal. The biggest thing with it being such a large structure, you know, one is I don't want something that's gonna be a maintenance down the road. You know, and I am a strong believer that standard vinyl siding on such a bigger building it doesn't look appealing, especially if you don't have a lot of windows in it to basically, because it's a storage building. I don't want to have a million windows that everybody can see in or whichever. So I strongly felt that the metal board and batten style siding, as far as maintenance and as far as appeal, is probably the best way to go at it. I don't want to put. I mean, my next option of what I really was going to do, which when I talked to contractors, like, yeah, we can do traditional board and batten. I've got two sheds out back that are going to be eliminated. because of that reason. Board and batten, wood, maintenance, staining, painting, doing all this other kind of stuff on a larger building like that, I might as well hire somebody to just sit out there and take care of it, because it's gonna drive me crazy if it's, gonna fade or, gonna need an everlasting amount of maintenance, so.
Well, what will the roof be? Will that be metal?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't say in the village code anything about the actual roof structure. It did say, the siding has to be, was requested not to be in metal. Am I wrong by seeing that? I'm not sure.
I just want to verify, but yeah.
It's just that the person that objected talked about requiring a certain type of roof with that other structure, so.
Yeah. From what I remember reading, I could be totally wrong, but.
Are
Yeah,
allowed.
they are, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
There's a suggestion of traditional materials, but they are allowed to be metal.
Okay.
Yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And then it's, again, going back to, and obviously village codes are village codes, but, the building is not visible. There's other buildings that are visible in the village that are metal. Obviously that's all irrelevant at this point, but my biggest stress is it's not gonna look like an eyesore, That's all.
I do have a question. Have you seen samples of metal that you're considering?
Yeah.
Because I think in the pictures, it seems like the standard stamped, I'm gonna say like Morton siding.
Like the wavy
Yeah,
type siding.
yeah.
I did, like, the stuff that you have there, obviously, didn't think it was gonna kind of get this far in depth. I mean, I was gonna try to get somebody to draw me up something or whichever. But, I did see, it's the board and batten siding, type look. And I'm just exactly what you said about your shed. It's literally looks like a board and batten.
So I think the reason for my questioning is
Sure.
that this would be a significant variance.
Yeah.
Because no other structure has been granted that variance.
Okay.
But there have also been tremendous advancements in
100%.
metal. Metal that looks like wood grain.
Right, exactly.
I would love to be able to see. So I don't know if the board would consider, if there was an approval, a specific type. So if you're thinking board and batten, if the.
Is it something as simple as, I don't mean to cut you
No,
off,
no.
I'm sorry, that I could pull you up a picture and simply show you, and kind of go from there, just.
Would that pass muster?
If you guys are okay with it, and then we can modify any resolution to make it a condition of approval that you must abide by whatever siding is agreed
Right.
to with the board.
I think that would help, because it is absolutely a significant request.
Yeah.
Okay? And I understand that you want to fulfill this need, but you have to look at it from our perspective.
100%.
Of opening a floodgate of potential, you allowed this person to have metal siding.
Yeah.
And if we were to consider granting this, it would need to be very, very specific. So yeah, if you have a picture.
I can see if I can pull something real
yeah,
quick,
yeah.
and kind of go from there. All right,
Okay.
cool.
Yeah, while he's looking for that, any other discussion from the board?
Yeah, come on, the audience.
Oh. You can, technically, we closed it's technically closed.
Can I make a comment, or?
Yeah, go ahead and make a comment.
You're setting a precedent here possibly. Sounds like you're going to give it all lots of due diligence. But this precedent will allow people that have existing barns and want to rehab them to say, I'm ripping off the clapboard, I'm putting metal up. So take into account that floodgate that you mentioned. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wouldn't that be covered, though, not being able to do something like that in the historic district?
I don't think so.
You mean someone with a barn wanting to take, yeah, I don't think that would be, so, for example, Simon, if you wanted to pull your wood siding off and put metal, I don't think you'd be able to do that.
My understanding of the historic district was that the only thing that it did was give you, you could get loans for rehabbing something at a lower rate. Was that, but it doesn't put any restriction, any extra restriction on property owners. I think it's an opportunity, not a
Yeah.
restriction.
Yeah, no, I think we'd appreciate some information on that. Just because, as the resident stated, it could potentially open up floodgates.
Yeah.
But the variance isn't for the siding, the variance is for the height, correct?
For both.
That's for
Two
both,
separate ones.
I've got actually had one to make my.
Sure.
I didn't know if I could sit in another, I thought I did put this one in there, but I guess I did. This is a picture of similar colors, contrasts, you know, like something very similar to that. The roof is gonna be a lighter tone, but that is a board and batten type vinyl. I mean, that's a more clear picture.
Pass that around. It's okay if we pass
Yeah,
this? Okay.
absolutely.
Pass that down that side.
Wow.
Like, you know, the metal
Well,
structures
there.
have come a long ways.
Yeah.
That's basically,
You wouldn't know by looking at that if that's vinyl.
no.
You would know, you know, it's,
Picture of the real thing. Here you go, I'll give you that back.
James, should we put in our approval that we're considering the part of the village we're approving this for, potentially? Because it does fit in with that section of the village more.
Yeah, I agree that it would potentially fit in with that part of the village, but I don't know if you can separate, it's all the same R15. Am I correct? If we approve something in the R15, it's potentially,
So yeah, Mo, what we could do, if the board feels inclined to move forward with this, any conditions that you would like to put on, such as you won't just approve any metal siding, it has to be something akin to board and batten, subject to review of the board. The resolution can be crafted to be narrow and make sure that anyone in the future who comes to you with anything of this sort has to abide by the same strict guidelines, that way there's not just aluminum siding going up on in different parts of the town, if that's what the board wishes to do. If that is the way that we wish to go tonight, we will vary slightly from the resolutions which were passed around earlier, and we'll walk through that when the time comes, but again, to your prerogative.
you need to go through the short form.
No, this is type 2.
Okay. So, I guess we're at the point where we need to kind of state our intentions. No one seems to have a clear, definitive opinion on it. I guess I'll start off by saying I'm inclined to support both variances. The height, absolutely. The metal, I think we'd have to be very careful about the restrictions. Anyone have anything else to add? Feeling one way or the other?
I agree with that.
If, whatever precedent we set for him, this is, he's got to follow it. But like this gentleman said, yes, there will be other, but it's all within the village. I mean, and if you look at these barns and everything like that, when it comes to rebuilding them, you can either go the old school way and go with regular wood and everything like that, or you could get something that's a remanufacture that looks like it, but it's metal or whatever, as long as it's keeping with the facade of the village, per se.
Yeah.
And then that's mainly for a place that would be visible from, for Main Street or whatever, right on Main Street, but you're not, again, you won't really see it, but if somebody went back there, it'll look good. It'll look.
As an owner of a 19th century house on Main Street, I gotta say that, I think buildings could be better made than they were then. And I'd hate to strangle the village in 19th century building technology. Things have gotten better, or they could be made better.
Yeah.
Well, you just make the outside really nice, you keep those old beams inside, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, well, there's problems with old houses.
Yeah.
Ask for a resolution authorizing council to draft a resolution to approve, subject to the board's review and approvals. That way it gives us a few weeks to pass back and forth and get everything together. So that way you don't have to have everything tonight. It gives us time to craft.
Okay. So it seems like there's consensus that this, these two variances would be supported with conditions. Like council just said, we should ask for a resolution supporting the variances, but give the attorneys time to word it correctly, and so it would be in front of us next month. Does that sound?
So it's gotta be another month, is what you're saying?
Yep.
So if I just went strictly board and batten siding, could we just move on with it?
Absolutely.
And I guess that's what the case is, if you don't approve one variance, I'll have to accommodate to the, biggest thing is the height, so.
Yeah, and I think that, from what I've heard on the discussion on the board, that's not gonna hold up your project, but the siding is. Because it's such a drastic change from what's been allowable before. And, I mean, I think we all agree that this looks beautiful. But because of it's being such a big change, it requires us to.
Rewording of the code, more or less?
Not that it changes the code at all, but we need to be careful that we're not opening the floodgates. So, if you're more comfortable with moving forward with wood siding, then that. Yeah, so before we delay, if you think you're gonna move to wood, this can probably be resolved this evening. So seeing as though these are two separate requests, why don't we take a motion to approve the height variance? And I'll give you a moment to consider what you want to do.
I'm just trying to think of ways to say, we get approved to do the height variance. I can go through the process of getting the building permit. Is there a process thereafter as I get the building permit while, he's looking to start this next month at the end of the day. So I'm just trying to see if he can start putting the structure up and then we iron out the siding thing, or, he's not gonna put there's no metal or anything that's gonna be going on the building until, he's got poles and posts and all that kind of stuff to do. So,
Yeah.
I know it's kind of a silly thing to ask, but, is that something that can be done, or it has to be ironed out, like before anything goes on in the building? I totally understand that. But if it's approved on, say we get the building permit and before the siding is even put on that building,
Well,
we can have that variance.
correct me if I'm wrong, but if you decide to do board and batten, you don't need a variance.
Yeah.
So if we,
I prefer to do board and batten metal is what I prefer to do. But, and I'm saying, like that's my question is obviously, we go file through for the building permit, everything's all set, everything's whichever, I know the village code, but that variance is still in effect. If it's not on the building at that current time, I'm good to go if it's approved, more or less. My intentions are he's looking to start this middle of the month. So by the time he's ready to put the metal on, I'll be here sitting in front of you
Yep.
that states you can, you know, you can build a structure, you can do the framework, you can do all that, you can do the insulation, but nothing goes on the exterior of the building until you come back before the board to review the variance. Could you do that?
Unless I did word that.
Yeah.
There is one other option for the board to consider. We could do conditional approval tonight, could condition it again upon Mr. Shank providing these, I guess, can the board keep these photos?
Yeah.
And then council, again, preparing a modified resolution that you will then have to approve and sign off on. The only thing with that is you would not have the full wording of the resolution in front of you this evening. I know there's been some concern about exactly how you'd like to craft it, but it is something that we have done before. But again, if the board wants to have input as to exactly what is in that resolution, then I would recommend waiting until next month.
So, to clarify, we could approve it conditionally, but we wouldn't necessarily see what council comes up with until after. Or if we want to be involved in the process of wording it, we would have to table any approval till next month.
So, again, just to clarify, the board would still see what came from council. However, you would be granting the approval and then kind of crafting and modifying the language as it went. There's a possibility that you would have to ask Mr. Shank to come back in. It's not as straightforward of a process as just waiting until the next month. However, if the board feels comfortable and is inclined, that is the direction we can move.
Well, I'm welcoming any comment from the board, but as someone who has experienced the delays and the process of having to bring something to the board, I am considerate of that. And the height, I think, is the biggest detriment to you starting or not. So that I think we can move forward with. It's whether or not the board feels comfortable with granting conditional approval.
I would.
I would too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, at least so the resident can at least keep in line with or keep his spot in line with his contractor.
Right.
And kind of keep him busy, you know, and keep it going. It shouldn't take, you know, that long to figure out what else, but at least he'll have a start on his project.
Okay. So then,
So, motions to approve the variances, to direct council to draft a resolution, subject to the conditions of the board.
okay. So, can I have a motion to conditionally approve these two variances based on the findings of council, and we'll have the exact wording at the next meeting? Does that work?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, so we're doing both of the variances, we're doing that in one motion, correct?
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay, so board member Freeman was one, and, okay, thank you. So, roll call, board member Freeman,
In favor.
board member Lippert,
In favor.
board member Parker,
In favor.
board member Trout,
Approve.
board member Pinsey,
In favor.
and chairperson Sullivan.
In favor. So, to clarify, the height has been approved, and council's gonna word for the metal. And if, right, and if that becomes too restrictive for you, you are always free to go back and do board and batten, wood.
So I can apply for the building permit, or I have already applied for the building
Yep.
permit, but I can go through the process of building permit, and then in the next 3 weeks that comes by, that's when I'll have the okay, yea or nay.
Yes,
So,
So I can start putting the building up for say once the building permit
is issued.
You just can't put it inside.
Correct.
Okay. Is samples something that would help with the process?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll see what I can do with that.
That'd be great. And I think that would go a long way.
Okay. Again, it's usually probably smaller
Yeah, I mean, this picture is really helpful because I think a lot of people have the visual of what a Morton building looks like with the wavy M-shaped print. So, thank you very much for your patience on the process.
Thank you.
Okay. We have one final item on the agenda, the approval of the minutes from last month. If anyone has any comments or corrections, otherwise I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
Approve.
In favor.
In favor. And then unless anyone has any new business, a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
We're just in
I'll second
Tom
it.
speech.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor, sorry.
In favor. Thank you, everyone.
Maybe we'll have warmer weather then.
Oh, my God. I'm gonna hold you to that.